Right now, about 84% of the planet believes in something watching them. You might not, but your brain does. Wire anyone up to a scanner, whisper someone's behind you, and the same circuit fires whether it's a burglar or a ghost. That circuit is a glitch. A false alarm your ancestors couldn't turn off. And here's the problem with calling it a glitch. 12,000 years ago, before farming, before writing, before the wheel, hungry people hauled 10-ton stones up a hill in Turkey to feed it. Nobody knows exactly how, but we're getting close to why. Start with the false alarm, because you felt it. You're alone in the house, a floorboard creaks in the next room. In the fraction of a second before you think it's just the house settling, something in you has already decided a person is there. Your heart is already moving. You didn't choose that. You couldn't have stopped it if you tried. The wind moves a curtain and your eye snaps to it. A shadow shifts at the edge of a parking lot and your whole body turns before you formed a single word about it. You are at every waking moment scanning the world for one specific thing. Not food, not danger in general. Minds, something out there that wants something, that has a plan, that might be looking back. Psychologists have a name for the machinery behind this. One of the most cited versions comes from Justin Barrett, a cognitive scientist who studies why belief is so common. He called it the hyperactive agency detection device. Strip out the jargon and it means something simple. Your brain would rather see a mind that isn't there than miss one that is. Think about why that trade would be worth it. Picture one of your distant ancestors on a grassland at dusk. The grass rustles. It could be the wind. It could be a leopard. Now run the two mistakes side by side. If she assumes leopard and it's wind, she loses a little energy and a little dignity. If she assumes wind and it's leopard, she's dead. She has no descendants. She teaches nobody anything, so over thousands of generations, the nervous ones won. Not the calm, correct ones, the jumpy ones. The ones who saw a hunter in every shadow and were wrong 9 times out of 10 survived the 10th time. And the 10th time was the only one that mattered. You are built from a long line of people who flinched at nothing, over and over, and lived. That's the engine. Now watch what it does when there's no leopard to find. Because the detector doesn't switch off in safe rooms. It runs all the time, hunting for intention. And when the world hands it something big and unexplained with no obvious cause, it does the only thing it knows how to do. It supplies an agent, something that meant it. The crops fail. Not the rainfall pattern shifted. Someone is angry. The child recovers from a fever that should have killed her. Not her immune system rallied. Someone spared her. The volcano that fed the valley with rich soil for a decade suddenly buries it. Someone is punishing us. In a world with no science, where you cannot see germs or weather systems or tectonic plates, the most natural explanation for a powerful event is a powerful person you can't see. That's worth sitting with because it flips the usual story. The usual story says early humans invented gods to explain thunder, the way you'd solve a puzzle. Calm, curious, filling in a blank. But the machinery underneath isn't calm and it isn't curious. It's a threat detector that evolved to keep you alive by assuming you're being watched. Gods may not have started as an answer to a question. They may have started as the output of an alarm that never got an all clear. And once that presence exists in your mind, something strange happens to how you behave, even when you're completely alone. In 2006, a team at Newcastle University ran an experiment so plain, it's almost funny. There was a coffee station in a university common room, the kind with an honesty box where you're trusted to drop in your own money for tea and milk. Above the box was a small price list. Every week, the researchers, led by Melissa Bateson, changed the picture at the top of that list. Some weeks it was flowers, some weeks it was a pair of human eyes, looking straight out at you. Nobody was actually watching. The eyes were a photograph. Everyone knew it, on some level. It shouldn't have mattered. People paid nearly 3 times as much in the weeks with the eyes, not double. Nearly triple, a picture, a flat image of eyes on a poster, and grown adults who understood perfectly well that a photo can't see them, quietly started paying what they owed. That is your agency detector working exactly as designed. Show it the shape of a watcher and it responds before your reasoning gets a vote. Watched people behave better, and the part of you that feels watched can be switched on by nothing more than 2 dots arranged like eyes. Now hold that experiment next to a hilltop. In southeastern Turkey, there's a place called Göbekli Tepe. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt started digging there, and what came out of the ground rearranged the timeline of civilization. Rings of massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some of them 5 meters tall, some weighing as much as 10 tons, carved with foxes and snakes and vultures. The oldest layers are around 11,600 years old. Here's what makes that number detonate. The people who built it had no pottery, no metal tools, no wheels, no farms. They were hunter-gatherers, and according to everything archaeologists believed for a century, hunter-gatherers do not build cathedrals. The order was supposed to go, first you invent farming, then you get a food surplus, then you get towns, then, once you have all that, you can afford priests and temples and gods, agriculture first, religion much later. Göbekli Tepe is monumental religious architecture built roughly 1,000 years before farming shows up in that region. The temple came first. Schmidt put it in 5 words that still unsettle the field. First came the temple, then the city. Sit with the logistics for a second. To quarry, carve, move, and raise 10-ton stones with nothing but muscle and rope, you need hundreds of people in one place at one time. Those people have to be fed. There are no granaries. Some archaeologists now suspect the causality ran backward from what everyone assumed, that the need to feed the crowds who gathered at sites like this may have pushed people toward farming the wild wheat that grew nearby. That belief didn't come after civilization. Belief may have been one of the things that dragged civilization into being, so the alarm in one skull becomes a pillar, and enough pillars become a reason to stay, to plant, to build. But there's one more turn, and it's the one that reaches all the way into your ordinary Tuesday. For most of human history, the Watchers weren't the grand, moralizing gods you might picture now. Small bands of hunter-gatherers didn't necessarily need a god who cared whether you cheated, because in a group of 50 people, everyone already knows what you did by nightfall. The group is the Watcher. Reputation is the punishment. You can't hide. Then the groups got big. The cognitive scientist Ara Norenzayan traces what happened next in his work on what he calls big gods. As farming let settlements swell into thousands, then tens of thousands, people started living shoulder to shoulder with strangers they'd never see again. And anonymity is poison for cooperation. In a city of strangers, why keep your word to someone you'll never meet twice? Norenzayan's argument is that a certain kind of god solved that problem. Not a distant creator who set the world spinning and walked away, but a god who watches, who knows what you did, and who cares. A supernatural pair of eyes over every honesty box in the city. His compressed version of it, watched people are nice people. The societies that happen to believe in a powerful, moralizing watcher could trust strangers, cooperate at scale, and outgrow the societies that couldn't. The belief spread partly because the groups that held it won. Think about what that means for the eyes on the Newcastle poster. That photograph made people more honest with no god, no religion, no threat of punishment attached. Just the raw feeling of being seen. Now imagine that feeling turned all the way up, made permanent, made cosmic, and woven into the rules of an entire civilization. That's one scientific account of what a moralizing god is. The honesty box eyes scaled to the size of the sky. None of this settles the oldest question, and it's worth being honest about that. Barrett's agency detector is a leading idea, not a closed case. Some researchers argue the effect is weaker or more complicated than the tidy story suggests, and the debate is genuinely open. Explaining the machinery that makes belief feel natural doesn't tell you whether anything is actually out there. A detector that sometimes cries wolf still lives in a world that has wolves. What the science describes is the equipment. What you do with the signal is a different question and an older one. But the equipment is real, and it's still installed, and you can feel it running in the smallest moments, which brings you back to the floorboard in the empty house. That jolt before the rational thought, the certainty that someone is there, that's not a flaw that showed up late. It's one of the oldest, most reliable pieces of you. The same reflex that kept your ancestors alive on the grassland. The same reflex that filled an unexplained world with unseen minds. The same reflex that hauled 10-ton stones up a hill in Turkey before anyone knew how to farm. You still talk to the empty room. You still feel the eyes when there's no one there. You didn't inherit the gods your ancestors built, but you inherited the thing that built them, and it's still listening, in the quiet, for someone who might be listening back.